we have the most famous person in the world with vitiligo was Michael Jackson. And he's the most famous person in the world. He never really talked about it that much, though.
And I guess at that time, it was difficult to speak up. I mean, I sound like I'm in his defense, but, it was very difficult. We didn't have things like body positivity and people talking about visual differences in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't like that when I was growing up, in the even late 90s. We didn't have this whole wave and this whole drive forwards towards educating people and about how empowering it is to be different.
Welcome to the Brown Girl Rising podcast, where authenticity meets empowerment. I'm Urvashi, your host and your guide on this journey of elevating voices, sharing stories, and navigating the journey of resilience. So, let's dive in.
Hey guys, I am so excited about today's Brown Girl Rising episode. I have my friend, the beautiful Joti Gata-Aura. Joti is a Spanish tutor, and if you've ever heard her speak Spanish, you will fall in love with her immediately. She's also a special needs school teacher and works with children with mild to severe learning disabilities. Joti also runs a platform called Positively Diverse, where she champions better representation in the media for those with visible differences and disabilities. She helps to raise the profile of body positivity in the media to spread awareness and raise awareness of vitiligo and other visual skin conditions and disabilities by challenging stereotypes and also breaking down barriers in society within the Asian community. She has self-published her own memoir called Strong in the Skin I'm In, and her most important job is being a mum to 2 beautiful children. Hi, Joti. How are you today? Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me on. That was a really lovely intro. Really loved that intro. Thank you for just highlighting all the things that I do.
You are an incredible woman, Joti. So look, I'm going to ask you a question I ask all my guests, which is, what does it mean to you to be unlimited?
What an amazing question. I mean, right now, what it means to me to be unlimited is to be completely free in the skin I'm in. And it means being free of the negative thought processes that I had for many years, being free of the, thoughts and, imagining what people were thinking about me, being free of all of that. It means just being confident and actually being really happy within the person that I am, within the skin that I'm in. And that's after having, dealt with my visual skin condition for 21 years. It's taken a long time to kind of be able to get to that unlimited stage.
Yeah. So if some people that are listening then don't know who you are and don't know about your skin condition, so Joti has vitiligo, which started out of the blue. So can you just tell us about the journey you went through and what happened?
Of course. So, I'm mid-40s now, and I was diagnosed with vitiligo at the age of 21. I was at uni, living my life and having a great time in third year of my degree. And then I noticed a white spot on the left of my arm, and the spot just started to spread. And as it, was spreading on one arm, it was very symmetrical and started to appear on the other arm as well. So I sort of noticed these patches just growing, and these small little spots were actually sort of amalgamating and becoming bigger spots and patches. So it was quite an obvious thing at the beginning. I think I was very aware of it, as you are when you notice anything on your body. And the very difficult thing was not being able to control it. Yeah. It was like I could just have a drink and it would go, or I'd pop a pill and it would go. There was just absolutely nothing at that time that I thought that I could do.
Wow. So you're at uni, this has started happening. How did that make you feel? And what were other people's reactions to you at that point?
It was very difficult for people to understand it because I hid it. And because the patches and spots were so small, it was always so easy to wear a long sleeve top. It wasn't on my face in the earlier years, so it was very easy to wear a long sleeve top or trousers and things like that and get away with it. It wasn't until probably about 7 years with having the condition that I then noticed patches on my feet, and I noticed appearing under my eye, and that's when it really hit me. oh my goodness, the condition is spreading like wildfire, and it's hitting the places that might be difficult to conceal. And that's when I started to panic more. And the more I started to panic, the more it
Right, okay. I lost you there, but I think you said the more you started to panic, the more it flared
panic
up.
started to spread. Yes.
Wow. So I don't know a lot about vitiligo, apart from that it is a visible skin condition. Is it an autoimmune disease then? Because if you're saying that it's been affected by your stress.
Yes, absolutely. So, obviously, doing years and years of research on this condition, it is an autoimmune condition. It affects 1 to 3% of the world's population, and it can affect anyone of any skin color or gender. It doesn't discriminate really, and so the thing is, it does. It's just one of these conditions that, unfortunately, I mean, there is some medical research that says that stress can exacerbate it. And as like with most medical conditions, they do sort of sometimes stem from stress. And I can sort of almost be very sure that mine did.
Yeah, absolutely. So culturally, how did your parents and family and people around, like close to you, take this? Because it's something like, as you said, it affects 1 in how many people did you say? Sorry,
1 to 3% of the world's population.
That's nothing, right? Really. So
Yeah.
having that affect you, what was it like for you in terms of culturally, people around you? Did they look at you differently? Did they treat you differently?
So it's growing up, like sort of when I say growing up, I mean from my 20s, because you're still sort of growing up, aren't you?
Yeah.
In your 20s.
I'm still growing up now, darling. I'm 42.
Growing up in my 20s, I guess, like, because I was so particular with hiding it from everyone, I thought I was doing a fantastic job with covering it up. So I found out about a place called Charles Fox in Covent Garden, and they do theatrical makeup, and I was like, brilliant, I can go and I can cover my skin and no one will notice a thing. Now, the thing about theatrical makeup, I haven't talked about this much on podcast, but I do want to talk about it with you today, is that theatrical makeup is very thick and heavy. So initially, when I started covering up my skin, I was putting on this thick layer of, theatrical makeup on my
Wow.
And I thought, great, no one can see. This is brilliant coverage. I was so desperate to cover it. So I didn't care, really. As long as you couldn't see the patches, I didn't care. And, it was very difficult because over the years I covered up from family and friends. Even when I got married, I made sure that, and no one saw my skin. I wore a long sleeve lenga, my feet were covered, and it was like, I walked down that Gurdwara and no one saw my skin. It was really bizarre. It's really bizarre looking back at that now, because had I been in the mindset that I am in now, I'd have been in a sleeveless outfit, modest, covered up, but my feet would have at least be popped out from underneath the lenga, but they were just really hidden. And I kind of smile about it now, because I just look at and think, gosh, how far I've come now. People at that time, I thought they didn't know, but they did know something was up. They did see the makeup, they did, but no one said anything. They knew something was wrong with me, let's put that in inverted commas, but they didn't know what it was, because I wasn't talking about it, nor were my family. I'd gone into this very much sort of recluse, isolated mode, and because I didn't want to talk about it, no one even dared talk about it with me.
Oh, wow.
So it was like that for years.
So that theatrical makeup that people wear on stage kind of became your barrier to conversations, to cover up kind of who you were, really became a barrier for people to actually approach you about this in terms of your skin condition and all that kind of stuff, right?
And it's a barrier that I wanted to put up. I didn't want people to ask me. I wasn't in that frame of mind, or with that mindset where I was open enough to talk, or comfortable enough to talk about it, because I hadn't at that time accepted my skin.
So you hadn't accepted your skin. So we're going to talk about drama now. So there's a thing called front staging and backstaging. Your makeup was your front stage. In the backstage, what was life like for you? Because you were obviously showing up as like covered in, like dolled up in theatrical makeup, but backstage, what was life like for you?
Life was crazy. I mean, I was working in a school, and I used to go in school with full face of makeup. I'd go on school trips in like the summer, and we'd go on a school trip to Hampton Court or something, and I'd be traveling on the train in a long sleeve top, and I'd have like staff members say, "Aren't you hot in that?" And I'd get really upset, because I'd be like, "Gosh, what am I going to say?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm absolutely fine," on the defense, but actually I was hot. But I couldn't show my skin to anyone, and I did it for years. Did it for absolute years until 2006, where things just started to change a little bit there. I didn't answer the front door to people, to neighbours. No one saw my skin. I didn't even go in the back garden, and I didn't even sit in the back garden and sit with shorts or anything, because I just didn't want anyone to see me. It was really difficult. It was a really difficult stage, but for me that was normal, because I didn't want anyone to see my vitiligo. I was really, really ashamed.
And today it's completely different. Today you show up as yourself. You don't wear the theatrical makeup anymore. We've met multiple times, and you are so proud of the skin that you're in today.
Yes.
What changed? At what point did it all change for you?
So I started doing a little bit of work with BBC One. I did a little bit of work with BBC One, and it was the first time that I kind of documented things on TV about like living with vitiligo. It was a very small part that I had. And that took me out of my comfort zone. I took 10 steps forward, just by being able to talk about it with the media. And that was the first time in 2006. And then I set up my Instagram, and it was just very much supporting people who are going through a visual difference, who've got vitiligo, and talking about, wow, look, I've managed to kind of talk about this on TV wearing a sleeveless top. And it's the first time I did it, Usha, the first time I went on TV, and the whole family saw me. The kids at school had seen it, and I had to go into my head's office and say, look, just to let you know, this is being aired on BBC One. You might get some parents and children asking questions. And they were just amazing. They were like, you are a fantastic role model for our girls. We want you to lead assemblies. We want you to do talks. We want you to be at the forefront of our community and host and talk about these things. So literally they threw me in it after that documentary, and I had so much praise from school. Oh my God, you were amazing, miss. It was really good. I then started to go into school without my makeup, because I kind of felt quite empowered. I felt like I can actually start doing this. I gradually started to decrease the amount of makeup I was wearing. Oh my God, it was amazing. And then I was asked to do mental health assemblies and year group assemblies, talk to the girls, go into RE classes as they talk about body positivity in RE, in the RE curriculum. It was just amazing. And that's, the more I started to do it and get feedback from the school, the more I wanted to be able to support people. And then that's when I started talking about my skin condition a lot more openly. That's how it all came about, really.
So it sounds like the BBC, no matter how small that interview was your liberation moment.
It was because they pushed me, and the producer said to me, please come on and take off all your makeup. And I said, no. I said, all I'll do, if you want me to do this and be part of this, I'll come on and do the documentary, but I will wear a short sleeve top. And I did it. But I stuck to wearing my makeup, because I did not want to, I hadn't reached that point where I could actually be comfortable with the nation seeing my skin. And that would mean like it was a big reveal. I wanted to do it step by step. Yeah. So, it was my arms. And then in school, I ended up wearing less makeup. And then after that, it just started evolving, the whole process of wearing less and less makeup.
So can we talk about the makeup? So this is probably a question you've never been asked before. So it might be a little bit weird. But when you were makeup matching, what color did you go with? Like, did you go with your original skin tone? This is somebody might be suffering with vitiligo, or it's starting to happen to their skin, because it's, so like, how did you manage that? Like, what did you do for makeup?
Brilliant question, Ish. Absolutely brilliant question. And no, I've hardly been asked that question. It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare, because if you've got patches of white, how do you then match it to your brown skin? I went to MAC and I spoke to them and said, look, I need some coverage. And there was a girl who sat there with me for about 2 hours, and she found some prolonged wear makeup that did the job. So then I stopped using theatrical makeup and started using prolonged wear, which was brilliant. But again, prolonged wear gave me a very thick layer on my skin. But I was so happy with that. I wore it for years. And then after that, Usha, I was just like, okay, vitiligo is spreading now, because you've seen me. I do wear a lot of sleeveless clothing now. it's now spread where my arms are white and my face is kind of turning white. So it's at the point where if I'm wearing makeup on my face, it looks really bizarre wearing makeup on my face, covering it up fully, and then having these white arms and legs and neck. So I've had to keep changing my makeup brands. And the last time I popped into Central to find a makeup that would actually show my vitiligo, but actually give me a little bit of coverage. And I did that with, I managed to find something with Bobbi Brown, and that was great. I mean, but it was really weird actually transitioning from wearing full coverage to actually wearing something a lot lighter that was able to give me a bit of coverage, but because now I want my vitiligo to show. I don't want it to be fully covered, because it also looks really strange having a full face of makeup and then these white arms and white legs.
But I hear what you're saying. You're doing it because of vitiligo, but actually, as our skin ages, we need to wear lighter makeup anyway. So you're like, I feel like your skin looks better with a little bit, as you age, with wrinkles and stuff, a little bit less makeup. So I was just going to give you a recommendation. Actually, Giorgio Armani Luminous Skin is insane, by the way. So I wear every day. It's so light. And it's beautiful. It's just a glowy foundation. So that's for anyone who's listening. Giorgio Armani Luminous Skin is insane. But when you were wearing this thick prolonged wear and the theatrical makeup and things like that, did you find that apart from the vitiligo, did you find your skin wasn't breathing enough? So maybe
it couldn't. It couldn't breathe. It couldn't breathe. And sometimes, and every time I'd go out for an evening or a social, I'd have to come home and wash it off thoroughly, like a properly shower from head to toe, be in that shower for a good half hour, getting off all the makeup because it was put on very thickly. And it's not great for the skin. Like, it couldn't breathe. I used to also cover up my arms with this theatrical makeup as well. So if I was going out and about, I couldn't just jump into bed, come home and jump into bed if I was tired. I had to fully shower and get all that makeup off. Otherwise it'd end up in the bed. So it was like a whole process. My skin did get a little bit pimply as well with wearing it. I had to make sure I was properly cleansing it and cleaning it, because it was, something that was time consuming, something that, it was kind of layered as well. But at that time, that's what made me feel confident, Ush. That's what made me feel beautiful. That's what made me feel like I fit in. I was so desperate for not to draw attention to my skin. I didn't want to draw that attention. I didn't want people looking at me. So I did everything I could to cover it up.
So let's talk about today. Today, you are empowering other people with visible kind of skin conditions to just be their truest, authentic self. How did we go from Joti, I wear theatrical makeup, to Joti today? Apart from the BBC, obviously, you've got your school, you do all the work you do in schools, but you're doing it for people beyond the school now. How did that happen?
Yes. So all these little things, all these little projects, it's all sort of happened and evolved very organically and very authentically. I've shared my story with one outlet, and then that, it's been shared with another. I've written for so many newspapers, Metro, The Guardian, loads and loads of different newspapers, and also taken part in quite a few TV and broadcast shows as well, radio shows. And I think by spreading this awareness, it's really sort of become important on days where, for example, earlier this month, there was a new revelation, which was a new diagnosis for vitiligo, a new cream that's come out, very sort of controversial cream as well, because it's got side effects. And so I took part in a lot of that. I was just lucky to be chosen to come on and talk about this for BBC Breakfast and BBC Morning Live. And it's a real opportunity to be able to for them to, talk to someone who lived with this condition and what their thought processes are now, It's happened, like I said, very organically, and I sort of still spread my word around on my social media. I sort of spread that awareness. I want people to know that they have that help and that they're not alone, because it's all fair and well sharing this knowledge, but also there are loads of people out there who are still struggling and that aren't at that point where I am. For me, it's taken many, many years of acceptance, and it's taken many, many small steps to get to where I am. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen quickly. It was a very gradual process. And I think it's really important to highlight that, that it's taken a good 20 years as well to get to where I am. And I think lots of small things have supported me along the way. Friends, family, my kids. Writing my book as well has been like a massive weight off my shoulder, because I've been able to share that in a real honest way. And it's a 1 hour read. It's a really sort of quick bio on what life was like living with my condition and where I am now. The highs and the lows, things I don't talk about on podcasts as much, but I've kind of revealed in my book, because it was a real sort of heart to heart where I was able to open up. So there's been lots and lots of things where I've been able to sort of find therapy. Writing my book was therapy for me as well. So it kind of really helped me release those thoughts that I felt for many, many years, and really, really supported me along the way.
So Strong in the Skin You're In, right? And Strong in the Skin I'm In is the book's title, right? Yeah. So why did you come up with that title? What was the reason behind that title?
Yeah, I had quite a few titles at that time, and I was really trying to find what I wanted to put in the title that reflected where I was at that moment in my journey. And I was feeling quite empowered when I was writing the book, and so I wanted something, that had quite a strong sense of finding myself. And I think that the title really does say it all. And obviously, the title reflects where I am now in comparison to where I was.
Yeah. So how do your kids see you?
They have grown up with me showing, talking, revealing, expressing, highlighting, educating people around me, friends, family, school kids. And I always worry and think, gosh, what will their friends say to them when they say, gosh, what's happened to your mum? But they're able to actually reply and give knowledge and educate their peers, which I think is so, so powerful. 11 and 13 years they are of age, and I think this is the age where children start worrying about what they look like, and all of these things start kicking in. So if they can educate their peers, that's something that I think will take them a long way, and also just help their friends understand, that there are people that look slightly different. There's nothing wrong with them, but it's actually, expressing or understanding and having that bit of empathy as well, which goes a long way. If they can do that with a few friends, they've gone a long way in terms of helping sort of get their generation of friends to understand what this condition is. And I think it's been amazing in the sense of, like, they've taken my book on World Book Day to school, so teachers have seen it. And they've shared it with their teachers, and I think teachers have obviously, it's kind of gone around the school as well. So I think it's, oh wow, that's my children's, that's their mother. Wow, that this is what she's done. So it kind of, like, the education kind of goes a long way, because I know if I turn up for parents' evening, they know about vitiligo, instead of sort of wondering, oh, I wonder what's happened to her skin. They might not ask the question, or they might not say what happened, but I'm sure they would have read up about it, because teachers are inquisitive. They want to know about parents. They are very inquisitive. They want to know about parents' backgrounds, the children's parents' backgrounds. Yeah, absolutely. So I know that's something that's really empowering. I think they sort of see me as someone who's just a normal mum that does normal things. But had I hidden my vitiligo from them, things would have been really different. I would have been creating two young people who would have been very conscious about the way they look, because mummy would have been hiding behind the skin she's in. And for me, the most empowering thing is them seeing their mum who's confident, who does not care about what people think, to go out and be who I am, regardless of what I look like. And I think that's just got a really powerful, that just feels really powerful in itself.
That is beautiful, right? So you're empowering your kids to just embrace who they are, by you embracing your vitiligo skin condition, right? So another question just came up to me, like, whilst you were talking, is, as I said, not many of us are educated about vitiligo and autoimmune diseases unless we actually have one. So is this hereditary?
Really good question. Again, there is no real scientific knowledge or proof that it is hereditary. So there isn't. And they do say as well that vitiligo skips a generation, that if it isn't within the family, it skips a generation. but there wasn't anyone in my family who had it. I mean, I lived with my grandparents when I was growing up, and they didn't have it. Um, and my mum says her parents didn't have it. So it's just one of those things. And actually, all the people that I know in the vitiligo community, many of them don't have, family or grandparents, parents or grandparents who have it. So it's just really bizarre, really bizarre. But there has to be, I think there's got to be a gene along the way somewhere where someone possibly did have it in the past. I just think perhaps there is,
Yeah. That, or that everybody has something in them that can trigger anything, right? So, for example, we all have this disease called H. pylori in our stomach. It sits there, it's there, and it'll take one trigger to bring that to the surface, like it did for me, right? It's just a trigger. My trigger was an injection that I had. And so now I have to deal with like vomiting or headaches or like acid reflux, and it's awful, right? But that's what I believe, so everybody is born with everything. It's just whether or not you get a trigger. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yes. And I think, and that's the thing. So when speaking to nutrition therapists as well, who have a lot of knowledge on this, I think that's something that comes about as well, that, there is something that triggers that gut, that triggers our gut. And, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I do agree with you. I do.
Our gut literally controls us. Everyone says our brain controls it. I think it's our gut. I've always thought it's our gut.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I guess I'm trying so hard now to sort of take away the anxiety and stress from my kids when they feel it, because I get so worried about, about stress and the impact that, it can cause, the negative impact it can cause on people.
Exactly. So how do you ever get people reacting to you negatively, and how do you deal with that?
Ish, to be really honest with you, I have to be really I feel really happy and proud to say that I've never had negative comments. But what I have had, and I think this can be more powerful, but this can be more sort of detrimental to one's self-esteem, is when people don't say anything but stare. So I think sometimes when people don't say things but they're looking, that can have more of a negative impact. If someone turns around and says, gosh, what is that on your face? I'd rather that than someone just stare at you and make you feel really uncomfortable. So for me, I've had the staring. I haven't had the negative words. I haven't had the, unkind words or someone shouting across the street. I've had more the looks, and that has been quite difficult at times.
I can imagine that, because there's been times when I've been on a tube and someone stared at me, and I don't have a visible skin condition, yet it makes me feel really uncomfortable. And it is because,
your beautiful hair, you've got lovely hair.
Are they looking at me because, I put on 20 kilos or whatever it is? That's what goes through my head. And it's just kind of like, look away. Is that a British thing though? People staring and not saying anything, do you think?
I wonder. I think it's just normal. I think people do it regardless, because when you're on holiday, you tend to sort of switch off and you don't tend to sort of worry about what people think and look. I think on holiday, we always feel quite differently, don't we? But I don't know as well whether there's a combination of people abroad don't tend to have that level of, it could be a British thing. It's quite off-putting and it's quite rude, I find as well. It's difficult, I think now, and I think the thing is, and I think you're absolutely right, sometimes when we're looking at people, we always think they're negative, but they could be looking at how lovely your hair is, your smile, your eyes, you've got such lovely, beautiful features. I'm always thinking, gosh, they're looking at me. And that's probably what I felt all the time. Gosh, they're staring at my skin, staring at my white patches. But to be honest, they probably were staring at my white patches. What's that? How did that happen? Oh, poor thing, Maybe it is a British thing. I mean, now, unfortunately, I feel it's happening less because everyone's just so engaged in their phones when they're on the.
No one looks around anymore. So look, Joti, we have the most famous person in the world with vitiligo was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Did you ever do you think that his skin condition helped you explain yours to people, or did you ever look to him and how he dealt with it? Because obviously, like, he had the skin condition, or was said to have the skin condition. We don't really know, right? And he's the most famous person in the world. He never really talked about it that much. So how did that make you feel?
As far as I'm, concerned, he wasn't an advocate. He didn't talk about vitiligo. He hid his vitiligo. He was in the most amazing position where he could have actually spread that message across the world within seconds. Within seconds, he could have written a song about vitiligo. He could have done an interview with someone, Jonathan Ross, God knows who. He could have done his interview and he could have spread the message about vitiligo within seconds, and he didn't. And he was in that position of fame. He felt, maybe he felt people were going to judge him. He wouldn't do as well because he'd be judged on how he looks. He hid it.
Yeah.
So he isn't someone that I love his music, always loved his music, been to his concerts, but I don't necessarily see him as a vitiligo advocate or role model because he didn't speak up.
Yeah.
And I guess at that time it was difficult to speak up. I mean, I sound like I'm in his defense, but he didn't. It was very difficult. We didn't have things like body positivity and people talking about visual differences in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't like that when I was growing up, in the even late 90s. We didn't have this whole wave and this whole drive forwards towards educating people and about how empowering it is to be different. And seeing people on TV or on big banners and posters around London, you wouldn't see that. So it must have been really difficult for him. So there's a level of empathy that I do have towards him, in terms of how difficult it must have been of someone who had that celebrity and fame to have that condition and hide it from the world. I mean, how difficult must that have been? It was horrendous. I can imagine what he went through, and it must have been so difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I rate Michael Jackson's music, but as I said, like, him not being an advocate and or hiding his skin condition, he could have done so much for people with vitiligo or any visual difference, right? Can we talk about Positively Diverse?
Of course.
You don't just advocate for vitiligo. It is any visible condition, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. The reason why I decided to change my Instagram handle from Vitiligo and Me a few years ago to Positively Diverse is because I had a lot of people approaching me, writing to me and talking to me about their visual difference and how it makes them feel and the struggles that they have on a day-to-day basis. And it really brought to my attention that it isn't just vitiligo. We've got a whole spectrum of all these different visual skin conditions that are all under the same umbrella. They all fall under the same umbrella. And I've done some work previously with hidden disabilities as well. So we're talking about, speech impediments and things that you might not visually see. Yeah. All of these things fall under that spectrum. And it's so important that people feel they've got a space to talk about it and share what they're going through. Hence why I changed my name from Vitiligo and Me to Positively Diverse to reflect all visual differences and disabilities so that we all can, come together and be able to share that space, that safe space to talk about these things. So I set up a website. I have all my sort of updates on there. And it's also an opportunity for people to be able to kind of work with me if they want to do a podcast or a talk or, come together and raise some awareness. It's an opportunity to sort of really grow and expand and educate people globally.
So if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best place for them to come to?
The best place is my Positively Diverse website, which is www.positivelydiverse.co.uk, and I'm on Instagram as well, so they can get in touch with me there. And yeah, I mean, I do have a LinkedIn and Facebook, but they are not really being used at the moment because I'm just kind of focusing on just using these two platforms to really amplify my message here first and foremost.
Incredible. And if someone wants to get hold of the book, where do they get the book from?
They can get the book on Amazon. They just need to type in Strong in the Skin I'm In. It's also available as an ebook as well. So you don't have to purchase the actual book itself. And it's available on Amazon Amazon.com and .co.uk.
And why did you decide to self-publish it?
I didn't think I was going to publish my book in the beginning. I just started writing my book during COVID. I joined a book group and I started writing my book for myself. Never thought I would publish it. Didn't really think that I was going to go on a mission to sort of do anything bigger than that. And after I had written it, I sent it to my best friend, and I said, look, do you mind reading this for me? Just tell me what you think. I've actually journaled everything I've gone through. And she came back in tears and she was like, you definitely have to go forwards and self-publish this book because you're going to help so many people. And the lady that I was doing the book writing course with, she said to me, you know what, you have two choices. You can keep it for yourself or you can self-publish this book. But if you self-publish this book, do you realize how many people you could be supporting? And when she said that, I was like, yeah, I've got to go through with this. So I just went through and thought, right, I'll just do it via Amazon. And, you know, whenever I do podcasts and talks, I'll talk about it. And if someone resonates with what I've talked about today, maybe they will find some healing and therapy through the book, and find some support from there, really.
That's beautiful. And the book isn't just for people with visible disabilities and skin conditions. It is for anyone who wants a beautiful, reminder to love themselves, I would say, wouldn't you?
Thank you, Ush. Yes. I think that's what it boils down to. It boils down to that key thing of, you know, I've now reached this time of my life. Sometimes I think it's a little bit too late, but it's not. At least I got here. I know there are many other people that are struggling along that journey. But you know what? There's so much support out there. And I really want to mention two charities as well. The British Skin Foundation and the Vitiligo Society. You know, if there's anyone listening to this that feels, gosh, I'm really struggling with something about myself, please reach out for support because you aren't alone. And, you know, I think one of the things that's so important to raise is that you must reach out for support, whether it's your GP, a qualified therapist, a best friend, someone to talk to, but do not suffer alone.
I love that. I love that. Do not suffer alone. So Joti, thank you so much for being on this podcast. If you guys want to get hold of her, you can find her on Positively Diverse on Instagram and all the w's.positivelydiverse.com, right? If you want to just talk to her, if you've got anything that you're worried about when it comes to your skin, maybe Joti is the right person for you to approach as a first step. If you're not comfortable talking to your own family, there is always going to be somebody out there who will hold that safe space for you and who will listen. So thank you so much for being on this podcast. I absolutely love you. You are a brown girl rising through and through. You are making a difference on this planet. You are inspiring other people to speak out and be their true, authentic self. And I can only thank you.
And I just want to say, Ush, I love what you're doing. I think that you're doing such a great job and, you know, raising awareness through your, you know, brown, you know, girl skin as well. It's just really amplifying the message across for so many people. And I just wanted to say, keep going because it's amazing what you're doing as well. And thank you so much for having me on today.
You are welcome. Thank you, Joti. And everyone else, I will see you on the next podcast.